Okay, so same thing on this. Let's say that hypothetically you're asked to develop an instrument to measure something like effective teaching. So this is what you want to measure. So the first thing that you've got to do is define what effective teaching is. So the question we'd ask ourselves, or should ask ourselves, is what is effective teaching? What do we know are the attributes of effective teaching, and which ones actually lead to quality learning? Do they all carry the same way? So once we get this figured out, which takes doing a lot of reading about what we already know that is valid primary source information about quality teaching, then we can think about how do we take those constructs and put those together. For example, if there is some measure of classroom management and interacting with students in a respectful way that leads to quality instruction, what is, if we want to look at that, what is that like in this best case scenario? And when somebody's doing a poor job, what does that look like at the other end? We also need to keep in mind that although there may be attributes that of an effective teacher, like where they went to school, that may not be observable in a classroom, or it may not be measurable. Can we put a scale on that? There are some things that have value, but we can't measure them very well. So what we're talking about is we put this thing together is construct validity. That's out of module 4. That takes a long time to be able to put this together, but let's say theoretically we do. Okay, so we have to try this at some point. So we're going to take a sample of teachers. That sample that we construct, because we want to make sure that it doesn't have anything to do with who we picked. We want to make sure it doesn't have anything to do with who is rating them. That the instrument itself is what determines whether or not somebody is a good teacher. Well, how to do that sample is module 6. How to construct that experimental design is module 7. So we go through all that process. Well, one of the things that we need to know is after they go through a pilot, do we have people who are scoring this thing differently than others, significantly different than others? Well, to find out if somebody's doing something significantly different, as we said at the beginning of the course, you got to take a statistical test. And if we have multiple people scoring all these teachers, let's say we have 6 people scoring 20 teachers, we want to know if there's a difference between those groups, those 6 graders on an ordinal scale. The idea of doing something like that, of being able to test data, comes from module 7. So let's say that we agree that we have a lot of agreement on the ratings. Is that an accurate measure? Is there something else that we can compare it to? If somebody scores well on the t-test, does that also mean they're scoring well on our test? Does it have any concurrent validity? So again, we want to know if there's differences between the raters. We also want to know, is this a one-shot thing or does this happen all the time? Does it have any external validity? So we want to test this hypothesis of there's no difference between the instrument we used to use and the instrument we use now. And we want to know, does it have external validity, which goes back to a null hypothesis statement that we covered in module 4. So all this stuff is connected. You're going to have to figure out a way to pull the thread through all this, and you have to use tools from various parts within the course to be able to answer the question.